soul saving, we can kind of check that box. We do soul saving, but I also believe it's in community building, which includes economic development, certainly community development, but it's like, community building is secondary to soul saving, and that addresses. I can't think of a sphere of human activity where we should not be involved in.
Mm. Okay, so this is very interesting. You say this. I'm writing things down because I don't want to forget what I want to ask you about. Um, there's a lot of criticism of the church. I'm going to ask everybody in here. Give me a yes or no. Do you go to church every Sunday, or some Sundays, or do you feel good about what the Black church overall has done, or with the community, that kind of thing? Do you feel like it's done what you want for your life? Okay, I see a lot of no's, and I wanted to get some answers to that in the chat so you can see that, just so. And I'm sure you've heard this, right, in terms of the critiques of the church. And I always say that, I make it very clear. Look, I don't think you could ever talk about the Black church as a whole, because there are thousands and thousands of churches that are doing thousands of different things. Some churches doing the right thing, some churches may not be doing as much of the right thing. But in light of that criticism that may come up, well, let's talk about just the economic side of it, right? I remember I was in Atlanta and I was running through the west end of Atlanta, and which was kind of a depressed neighborhood, and the whole neighborhood was just torn to pieces. I mean, apartment buildings that looked like they shouldn't even be lived in. I saw a corner store, a bunch of brothers just sitting on the corner, nothing to do. Right across the street, though, I saw a construction project, and all the people working on the construction project were non-Black. They were white or Hispanic. But the Black men I saw were sitting there drinking and talking and whatever. And then in this area, which I think it was kind of a dangerous neighborhood, because people would see me and one guy was like, "Dr. Boyce, what you doing over here?" Like, I'm like, what do you mean? Like, I didn't know I was not supposed to be here. And because I was literally running to my grandmother's, I Google searched for my grandmother's grave. My grandmother's buried there. And all I did was I said, I'm gonna make a beeline and run those 6 miles to go see my grandma. So that's all I was thinking about. I wasn't thinking about what neighborhood I'd run through. And maybe I should have thought about that. But anyway, I remember after seeing all this and just kind of looking around and just thinking, this is what's going on here. Like, where are these Black politicians at that are supposed to be helping people and all that? And I saw a little corner store owned by an Indian man who had big bars on his windows or whatever. So he could get the money without necessarily dealing with the problems. And then I saw this big, beautiful church. Right? This church, I mean, looked like it came straight out of heaven. And it was the nicest building on the entire block, right? So that is a stereotype, as I know that you're aware of, that the church does well financially, but the community around it might struggle. I personally think that you can have both. I think the church can do well and the community can do well. I think the church is a natural economy. And I think that maybe it's just that economic awareness that could help to reconcile those two things, where you doing well does not mean others are going to do poorly. You can all do better together.